You're about to do a breath that can change everything. This is not an exaggeration nor a metaphor. This technique was used by initiates of Thoth to align body, mind, and spirit. And once people discover it, they never go back to who they were. Take a deep breath. Feel the air coming in. Now hold it for a moment. That's how it starts. Not with 1,000 rituals or empty promises, but with air, with an exact sequence, a specific posture, and a secret that the ancients kept for generations because they knew the power it holds. Thoth didn't talk about this practice as a trick. He called it a portal of inner activation. And this activation is about to happen with you here now. But pay attention. If you leave before the end, you'll miss the most important part, because only those who go all the way understand how to use this in a sacred way and resonate on a different frequency. So breathe, because now the awakening begins. What rises through breath descends through divine inspiration. Have you ever stopped to think that the most common thing you've done since you were born might actually be your greatest instrument of power? No, this isn't an exaggeration. It's literal. Breathing has always been treated by ancient traditions as much more than just biology. For them, to breathe was to create, to heal, to access realms that the eyes can't see. In ancient Egypt, for example, the priests of Karnak and Luxor practiced rhythmic breathing exercises before any ritual. They knew that air wasn't just air. It was a channel, a vehicle between worlds. They called it Ka, the breath of life. But this breath would only truly circulate when the body was present and the mind was calm. These priests weren't just seeking connection with the gods. They were training the body to receive divine energy. They knew the body wasn't just flesh. It was a temple. And like every temple, it needs a way to align with the sacred. Breathing was the portal. But it wasn't just the Egyptians. In India, the Vedic rishis developed what they called pranayama, a set of ancient practices that taught how to master prana, the cosmic energy, through breath control. They didn't breathe just to fill their lungs. They breathed to awaken elevated states of perception. This wisdom wasn't limited to the East. In ancient China, Taoists and internal alchemists used breathing as a tool for energetic refinement. Qigong, which emerged from this tradition, involved gentle movements, internal focus, and silent breathing. With that, they didn't just strengthen the physical body. They cultivated what they called the body of immortality, an energetic structure that transcended matter. Even among Christian mystics, this understanding existed. In moments of deep prayer and stillness, breathing slowed down. It became sacred. It was in this state that, according to them, the soul could be filled with divine presence. All these traditions, separated by continents, languages, and centuries, said the same thing. In different words, breathing is more than living. Breathing is interacting with the invisible. But that was forgotten with hurry, urbanization, and too much stimulation. Breathing lost its place of honor. Today, it's an automatic reflex, a mechanical gesture that almost no one notices. And when breathing becomes just biology, consciousness loses access to what it could awaken. That's why the ancients called this practice the supreme alchemy, because it transforms, it transmutes, it changes the density of the mind and raises the frequency of the soul. When you breathe with intention, the world around you changes. Not because the world changes, but because your vibration changes and everything you see begins to respond to who you are. That's what initiates of all ages knew. That true power wasn't in external temples, but in the silent mastery of the air that flows in and out. And if you doubt that, maybe it's time to listen to what modern science is starting to discover. Because now science is proving what the sages always said, that breathing changes your physical state, your emotions, and even the way you perceive the world. And what it's revealing will surprise you. Science confirms what the masters already knew. Neurological research shows that the way you breathe changes your brain chemistry. Breathing slowly and consciously activates the parasympathetic nervous system, the same one responsible for states of calm, mental clarity, and deep restoration. While short, fast breathing, so common in the stress of daily life, activates the sympathetic system, which triggers alertness, tension, and exhaustion. In other words, you can literally change the state of your body and mind just by changing the way you breathe. But it goes even further. Recent studies also show that certain breathing patterns activate specific areas of the brain related to perception, intuition, and focus. In other words, breathing doesn't just influence how you feel, but how you perceive reality. It may sound magical, but it's pure physiology. Your brain isn't isolated from your body. It's in constant communication with your lungs, your heart, your digestive system, and even your skin. Everything is interconnected, and breathing is the central point of this silent conversation. With every conscious inhale, neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine begin to be produced in greater quantities. They regulate mood, reduce anxiety, and increase feelings of well-being. It's like the body itself is rewarding you for being present. Now listen to this. A series of studies on psychological trauma revealed that deep breathing techniques, those practiced with rhythm and focus, have the power to interrupt automatic patterns of fear, panic, and reactivity. What used to take years of therapy is now beginning to be restructured from the inside out through a simple act you already do every day. Breathing. And that's just the surface. When we talk about altered states of consciousness, mental expansion, moments of creative insight, and even mystical experiences, science is paying attention to. Scientists have observed that during specific breathing practices, the brain shifts into alpha and theta frequencies, brain waves associated with deep relaxation, vivid visualizations, and access to the subconscious. And guess what? That's exactly the state that initiates of the mystery schools sought to reach in their rituals. Thoth didn't talk about neurotransmitters. The rishis didn't use EEG devices. The Taoists didn't do scans. But they all knew from direct experience that there's a secret link between how you breathe and the world you create around you. Today, laboratories are just beginning to explain what they already lived in their own bodies. And this body, as silent as it may be, holds an extraordinary mechanism, an internal structure that works like a hidden switch capable of turning chaos into balance. It's what connects your brain to the rest of your body. And when you activate it with the right breathing, everything begins to shift inside. Because this mechanism doesn't respond to logical thinking, it responds to the rhythm you bring to the air. And from now on, that's exactly what you're going to discover. Science has revealed the impact. The ancients already lived this reality. And now the link that connects both worlds emerges. The vagus nerve. This isn't a common word in most people's vocabulary, but it should be. Because the vagus nerve is simply one of the most powerful pathways in your body. It's the hidden messenger between your brain, your heart, your lungs, your stomach, your gut. It carries the commands between the deepest parts of your being. And the most impressive part? It responds to your breath. When you breathe quickly and shallowly, this nerve tightens. Your body goes into alert mode. The brain activates survival circuits. It's as if you're living in war mode, even if everything outside looks calm. But when you breathe slowly, deeply, with rhythm, everything changes. The survival system gives way to the regeneration system. The heart slows down. Tension dissolves. Clarity appears. Your emotional field finds peace. And all of this begins right there, deep in the throat where this nerve has its most sensitive branches. It's a silent key that shifts the vibrational state of the entire body. And it's not just about calm. It's about real reprogramming. By activating the vagus nerve through conscious breathing, you send a message to your body saying, "We're safe. We can relax. We can heal." And the body listens. It starts releasing acetylcholine, the neurotransmitter of calm. It reduces the release of cortisol, the stress hormone. It stimulates the digestive system to function properly again. Cellular regeneration begins. Memory improves. Intuition becomes clearer. This mechanism is so deep that the ancients treated it as an energy bridge. For Taoist practitioners, it was the opening of the central channel through which qi ascended along the spine. For Indian yogis, it was the activation of the sushumna, the subtle pathway through which kundalini energy would rise, awakening centers of power and higher perception. And although these traditions used different language, they spoke of the same experience. Proper breathing opens invisible but very real channels. Thoth also referenced the power of conscious breath as a tool for divine connection. His writings and Egyptian rituals preserve the idea that the breath was a living intelligence, a means of communication between the earthly and spiritual worlds. And it's no coincidence that in all these traditions, silence, stillness, and focus on breath came before any sacred contact. The activation of the vagus nerve in this context is not just physiological, it's spiritual. Because when it opens, you don't just feel peace. You realize you're reconnecting. It's like an inner radar being turned back on. A radar that perceives more than the eyes can see, that picks up subtle signals, that listens to the body from within, that begins to notice there's an intelligence operating beyond ordinary logic. This is the point where the body starts to remember the language of the soul. And this remembering doesn't require effort. It doesn't require blind faith. It only requires that you breathe the right way, with intention, with rhythm, with presence. Because now it's time to reveal how to activate it with precision. The breathing sequence used by initiates, rediscovered by science, and capable of transforming your vibrational field in minutes. This is the moment when theory becomes practice. The sacred sequence, 4-7-8 breathing. All this invisible intelligence your body carries needs a code. And that code was preserved in mystery schools, in oral traditions, and is only now beginning to be rediscovered by modern science. For 7-8 breathing. Inhale for 4 seconds. Hold the breath for 7. Exhale slowly for 8. 3 numbers, a rhythm, and an activation that happens in silence. This technique wasn't created now. It was remembered. What makes this pattern so powerful is what it triggers inside your system, without needing you to intellectually understand all the details. Because the body understands before the mind. The 4-7-8 sequence acts as a vibrational tuner. It retrains your respiratory system to stop operating in urgency mode and enter regeneration and expansion mode. And even more importantly, it respects the natural timing of your energetic field. When you inhale for 4 seconds, you're not just filling your lungs. You're expanding your chest center, activating the energetic meridians in the chest, massaging the heart, and creating internal space. By holding for 7 seconds, you allow carbon dioxide, the one you were always taught to fear, to remain in the body longer. And that's what helps oxygen be absorbed more efficiently by the cells. During this retention, a gentle internal pressure begins to form, stimulating the energetic flow along the spine, activating regions like the pineal and pituitary glands, which are closely linked to higher perception. And then the release. Exhaling for 8 seconds is more than letting go of air. It's releasing tension, dissolving noise, letting go of what no longer belongs to you. The long exhale directly activates the vagus nerve, leads the body into a state of deep relaxation, and allows your mind to enter a lower frequency, one that supports intuition, creativity, and connection. This practice, which seems so simple, was used as preparation for deep rituals, before accessing sacred portals, before receiving inner guidance, because it's not just physiological. Prepares the subtle terrain. That's why, in many cultures, there was no rational explanation. It was knowledge passed through the body. The master breathed with the disciple, and the field spoke for itself. Thoth spoke of breath as the principle of ordering life. He said there's a hidden rhythm in the universe, and those who learn to breathe in that rhythm enter into sync with the cosmos itself. And that's exactly what the 4-7-8 sequence does. It pulls you out of the fragmented time of the modern world and places you in the time of the spirit. The most surprising part is that it doesn't require effort, no belief, no long hours of practice. 3 cycles of this breathing are enough to trigger a visible change in your body's state. In less than 2 minutes, you feel your pulse slow down, the mind quiet, your awareness turn inward. But that doesn't mean just doing the technique will take you to the deepest transformation. Because mastering the rhythm is only the beginning. What turns the practice into real alchemy lies in the subtle details. And that's where most people get lost without even realizing it. Because the technique, no matter how perfect, has no life of its own. It's like an instrument. And what truly creates the melody is the internal state of the one playing it. Breathing by itself isn't magical. It becomes sacred when it's filled with intention. And that's what turns a simple exercise into a real alchemical practice. The ancients knew this. They never separated breathing from purpose. They never started a cycle without first establishing internally a clear energetic direction. Before each practice, there was a moment of silence, a pause, an intimate question. Why am I breathing right now? It wasn't about control. It was about meaning. Intention isn't positive thinking. It's organized emotional vibration. It's when you add feeling to the act. It doesn't matter if it's peace, gratitude, forgiveness, courage. What matters is that this energy flows through your field as the air flows in and out. Because when emotion is present, the body records it. The cells listen. The field adjusts. It's as if the entire universe responds to what you vibrate while breathing. And that doesn't happen by accident. Everything in the universe. And those who learn to breathe in that rhythm enter into sync with the cosmos itself. And that's exactly what the 4-7-8 sequence does. It pulls you out of the fragmented time of the modern world and places you in the time of the spirit. The most surprising part is that it doesn't require effort, no belief, no long hours of practice. 3 cycles of this breathing are enough to trigger a visible change in your body state. In less than 2 minutes, you feel your pulse slow down, the mind quiet, your awareness turn inward. But that doesn't mean just doing the technique will take you to the deepest transformation. Because mastering the rhythm is only the beginning. What turns the practice into real alchemy lies in the subtle details. And that's where most people get lost without even realizing it. Because the technique, no matter how perfect, has no life of its own. It's like an instrument. And what truly creates the melody is the internal state of the one playing it. Breathing by itself isn't magical. It becomes sacred when it's filled with intention. And that's what turns a simple exercise into a real alchemical practice. The ancients knew this. They never separated breathing from purpose. They never started a cycle without first establishing internally a clear energetic direction. Before each practice, there was a moment of silence, a pause, an intimate question. Why am I breathing right now? It wasn't about control. It was about meaning. Intention isn't positive thinking. It's organized emotional vibration. It's when you add feeling to the act. It doesn't matter if it's peace, gratitude, forgiveness, courage. What matters is that this energy flows through your field as the air flows in and out. Because when emotion is present, the body records it. The cells listen. The field adjusts. It's as if the entire universe responds to what you vibrate while breathing. And that doesn't happen by accident. Everything in the universe responds to vibration. And your breath is the most direct channel between your inner state and the field around you. Initiates from different traditions knew that rushed, tense, or automatic breathing wouldn't bring the desired effects. On the contrary, it could even block the energy flow. But when the practitioner breathed with reverence, with the heart present, with the gaze turned inward, energy aligned naturally. That's why you can repeat the 4-7-8 technique every day and still not feel deep effects if you're doing it on autopilot. But when you breathe with true presence, even a single cycle is enough to change everything. So before you inhale, pause. Bring your attention to the center of your chest. And there, without words, just feel the intention you want to bring into the practice. It doesn't have to be complex. It can be something simple and direct. May this breath align me with peace. May this breath clear what no longer serves me. Or even, may I remember who I am. This simple act changes your field's frequency because now what's coming in with the air isn't just oxygen. It's awareness. It's direction. It's power. And when that presence joins the rhythm of the breath, the body begins to respond like a temple being reactivated. The hands warm. The chest expands. The mind quiets. You're no longer just breathing. You're guiding energy with wisdom. This is where the alchemist is born. Not from technical mastery, but from the ability to make each breath carry a true vibrational purpose. But for that energy to fully flow, the body needs to become an unobstructed channel. And now it's time to understand how the physical structure directly influences the circulation of subtle energy, the posture that turns the body into a channel. If energy is flowing, it needs an unobstructed path. Posture isn't about appearance. It's functional. The spiritual. Your spine, often forgotten in the rush of everyday life, is a true channel for energy conduction. It's no coincidence that all spiritual traditions have preserved this detail with care. In ancient Egypt, during the rituals at the temples of Luxor and Karnak, initiates kept their spines perfectly upright before invoking any divine force. They knew that without this alignment, the body became a wall, not a bridge. The same was true among the yogis of India, Taoist monks, Andean shamans. The spine must point toward the sky like an antenna, because in fact that's exactly what it is. When you sit with your spine upright, without tension, with lightness, something begins to shift subtly. Energy flows upward more easily. The nervous centers of the spinal cord align. The upper glands, like the pineal and pituitary, are activated. These glands are not just organs. They are interfaces between the physical and spiritual worlds. And their activation doesn't depend on effort, but on structure. The simple act of adjusting your posture opens internal space for what is trying to emerge. It's as if the soul has been waiting for you to simply make yourself available, so it can operate. When the body collapses, energy gets stuck. When the body organizes itself, light flows. That's why, when practicing sacred breathing, sit with dignity, not out of vanity, but out of respect, out of awareness, out of presence. The head gently tilted downward, the chin subtly tucked in, the crown pointing upward, the chest open, the base grounded. This is the body that becomes a channel. But there's one detail that, if ignored, can compromise everything. Because with the energy rising, it's essential that it has somewhere to return. This is where grounding comes in. Energy without a base disperses. And even light can get lost when it doesn't find a foundation to settle into. That's why now, more than ever, you need to learn how to anchor yourself to the earth. As subtle energy travels up your spine, your field must create roots. This principle was carefully preserved by all spiritual paths that sought integration. Not escape. There's no point in expanding upward if the downward is empty. True growth is vertical. The spirit rises. The root descends. The practice is simple but deeply effective. Just sit with your feet grounded or imagine, at the base of your spine, a beam of light descending toward the center of the earth. Imagine roots coming out from the soles of your feet, traveling through layer upon layer of soil until they touch the hot, living core of the planet. Visualize these roots as golden threads, stable, pulsing. And then, breathe with this image alive within you. As the air enters and energy rises, the roots keep you steady. You become a tree, crown in the sky, trunk in the now, roots in the center of the world. That's what sustains true transformation. Not thoughts, not willpower. The foundation, the direct connection with the vibrational ground of existence. Without it, it's common for practitioners to experience restlessness, mental confusion, or even insomnia. The energy rises but doesn't settle. That's why grounding must go hand in hand with expansion. And the result is a more centered, more stable, more secure field. You stop being shaken by emotional winds and begin to move with the steadiness of someone who knows where they stand. And when the body is aligned and the energy firmly anchored, the greatest challenge of all arises, bringing this wisdom into real life. Because it's easy to feel peace in silence. The hard part is maintaining that presence in everyday chaos. And that's exactly what you're about to learn now. Sacred breathing is a path to inner mastery. True alchemy doesn't happen in the temple. It happens in the bank line, in traffic, during a rushed lunch, in a difficult conversation. In the moment you realize you're losing your center, it's in these moments that conscious breathing needs to come in, not as a memorized technique, but as a living presence, as a constant reminder that you have a choice. The choice to return, to breathe, to re-enter. Because the modern world wasn't designed to make your connection easy. It demands speed, quick responses, constant motion. And for that very reason, it's in this world that mastering your breath becomes even more necessary. Every time you inhale with awareness in the middle of your routine, you're telling the universe, I remember who I am. I remember the silence behind the noise. I remember the light within the chaos. That remembering is what makes breath a path, and not just a tool. When you turn the act of breathing into a living practice, you shift your baseline frequency. You stop swinging with the ups and downs of external events. You start vibrating from a steady center. And that changes everything. Your mood stabilizes. Your mental clarity increases. Your intuition sharpens. You begin to notice the subtle signs of reality more easily. You feel more, think more clearly, act with more precision. And it's not because something magical happened. It's because you finally started living from the inside out. Each morning, before even opening your eyes, you can start with 3 conscious breaths. With every task transition, you can use the technique to clear your field. While walking, you can sync your steps with the rhythm of your breath. Before sleeping, you can take one last long and present breath, like closing the cycle of a day lived with intention. This practice doesn't require more time. It requires more presence. That's what turns breathing into spirituality. Not the ritual, the simple gesture done with soul. It's realizing that even in the middle of routine, there is an open portal to the sacred, because the truly spiritual doesn't live running away from the world. It moves within it with a different frequency, and that frequency starts with air. And when you breathe like this, in every moment something subtle happens. Breath stops being just a practice and becomes a silent prayer, a vibrational mastery that changes your reality without you needing to say a single word. Because when each breath carries intention, awareness, and surrender, it stops being just physiology and becomes spiritual resonance. The true name starts to echo clearly within those who feel it. Sacred breathing. Not because someone named it that, but because the experience makes the title inevitable. Breathing with presence is no longer a technique. It's a direct reconnection with what's most authentic inside you. The ancients knew this. That's why the mystery schools never gave this knowledge away immediately. It was necessary to go through inner layers, dissolve illusions, silence mental noise, until the initiate was ready. Ready not to master others, but to master themselves. Thoth left traces of this path not in memorized formulas, but in symbols, metaphors, and practices reserved only for those who sought with an awakened heart. He taught that breath is the vibrational key to the universe. It's not a metaphor. It's literal. The vibration of your field changes with the rhythm of your breath. What you feel, think, and attract is deeply influenced by this simple act. And that's why sacred breathing becomes the central axis of energetic sovereignty. When you breathe with awareness, you silence chaos. You choose the frequency. You anchor yourself in the present. You don't react. You create. That's where the awakened alchemist sets themselves apart. They don't seek answers outside. They don't need doctrines to support them. They know the air entering and leaving their body is the same that moves through the cosmic winds. And so each inhale becomes a prayer. Each exhale an act of release. Nothing is more hidden than the obvious. And air has always been right in front of us. Always available, always underestimated. But now you know. It's not just about breathing better. It's about remembering that this simple act is a code of access. With every breath cycle, you send a vibrational signature to the universe, and the universe responds in the same frequency. This is the secret of Thoth that remained hidden in plain sight. Not out of malice, but because it can only be revealed to those who are ready to practice it with soul. Today, you didn't learn a technique. You remembered something your essence carried long before your first breath. You activated the memory of an ancient knowing, something that had been asleep, waiting for the moment when you'd be ready to truly live. And now that this power is back in your hands, it can't be forgotten, because those who breathe with awareness vibrate with the universe. If you've made it this far, it's because something inside you felt the call. So now, write in the comments, I breathe with presence. I activate my essence. This phrase will anchor this frequency in your field, and it may awaken other souls who were also ready but just needed a sign. And if you want to help this channel spread more content like this around the world, down below in the first pinned comment, there's a way for you to directly support the project. And before you go, a special video has been prepared for you, continuing this teaching. It's already on the screen. Just click so we can meet again there.